He's defeated every champion from every organization the sport of mixed martial arts has ever seen and retired from the octagon as the biggest draw and the industry's highest paid athlete of all time. And now Chael Sonnen's on podcast1.com. And for that, you're welcome.
Hey fans, I could use your help. Real fast. Go over and take the Podcast One survey. Responses align with appropriate advertisers to this audience. This survey is short and completely anonymous. It takes no more than 5 minutes, much more like 2. There's 2 easy ways to do it. Go to podcast1.com/mysurvey or go to podcast1.com and click on the survey banner. You've filled out the survey in the past. I appreciate it, but I need you to do it again. For everybody that listens to Your Welcome, this is a way to make it better, and this is a huge favor you'll be doing me by filling this out. Thank you for supporting the program, and please take time to do the survey.
Do the survey, everybody.
What in the hell was going on with you yesterday? You had blood coming down your face. I thought it was chew spit. I took a picture of you. This went crazy on the internet.
Well, hold on.
Your girl, Sydney Harris, was the first one to the party going, hey, where's this picture? I put the picture out, and it wasn't until people started commenting on it that it kind of dawned on me. I mean, Reese just texted me this morning. He wakes up to the show. And it wasn't really until after the fact that it dawned on me, yeah, man, this is weird. The big guy's got blood rolling down his face.
Let's back up a second, okay?
Okay, but here's what I do want to know before I lose my train of thought. Where did the blood come from? Do you have was it from Jake and you were punched in the mouth? And when we talked about you going to the gym, you realized yesterday not only did you have blood running down your face, but you're now in a scheduled fight with Wes Sims. I mean, all of that happened, and we kind of just glossed over it.
Well, let me back it up a little bit. Yeah, Jake must have caught me and split my lip, and then in the middle of the show or at the beginning of the show, it opened up and I started bleeding. But let's back it up a little bit. On the show, maybe last week, I'd already decided I'm going to fight. I didn't know who I was going to fight. I decided a couple weeks ago, God damn it, if I'm going to get in shape, I'm going to fight. I didn't know who. And a couple weeks ago, I mentioned that bar workout that Randy used to do in the back of the dealership. And you must have thought about that too, because Sunday morning we did it in your garage. And that thing hurts so goddamn bad. You want to explain what it is real quick and then...
Well, it's called Sixes, and we used to do it all the time. And then when we got together Sunday to do it, we were even discussing with each other, like, okay, what is it we do? But you either do 6 reps of 8 different exercises, or you do 8 reps of 6 different.
6 of 8.
Okay, and that's what we couldn't remember. So we were trying to remember all the things. But essentially, you pick up the bar one time. You don't put it down until you've done 48 reps. But there are 8 different exercises. So there it is.
So we do that, and immediately, by the time I go downstairs, I'm already feeling it. And that was Sunday, and then Sunday night, in the middle of the Super Bowl, you called me, and you said, this is beautiful, by the way, you said, do you want redemption? And I'm thinking about all the things I need redemption for when you asked me that. You know, I've paid most of it back, goddammit. I've paid most of it back, Miss H, listen. And I'm like, for what? And you just start laughing, and you said, does it matter? Redemption's a good thing. And I said, yeah, I do want redemption. And you said, okay, do you want to fight Josh Bennett? And I said, no, but I'll fight Wes Sims. And you said, okay, perfect, because then you have to, you'll need to train with Josh Bennett. And boom, you know me, I know you, that fight was made, and that fight's going to happen. So I knew you had to go to... Raw, Monday Night Raw, and you weren't going to be at practice. I also saw Ryan in some positions at the fight Saturday night that drive me crazy, man. It always drives me crazy when dudes have body lock positions and just hold that body lock. Either do something with it or get the hell out. So we got Jake Smith coming up, and we're going to go watch him. He's in a fight in his hometown, and I'm like, God damn it, if he gets caught in those positions, and I don't at least go try to help him a little bit, I'm going to be mad at myself. So I call Jake and I say, hey, Jake, let's work out. By that time, we've already made the fight. Okay. So I'm tougher than hell. I'm the baddest mofo in the world. Now I'm sorer than hell. I go into to spar and go through practice.
It's amazing how tough you can talk yourself into being without doing it, though, huh? Every time I take a break, it's the same thing.
Yeah. Well,
I'll go watch it on TV and think I'll whip all of these guys when you're taking a break and you're not there. Yeah.
So I go up there and I get my medicine. I realize that it's a short journey, but it's a hell of a long walk to where I'm going. And so yesterday, you'll notice I'm not sitting down right now. Have you ever noticed me sit? I never sit down in here. I was sitting down. I hurt so goddamn bad. I'm depressed. I know how far I got to go. I've talked a gang of shit on this podcast to a bunch of people that now I know I don't want you to come see me for a minute. Okay. So I just couldn't move. Now, this morning...
Hey, I thought you were drunk yesterday. You know, I brought that up on the show. I didn't really realize what was happening on the show till after the fact and the reception we got. And I went back and listened to it. There was just so many things that I should have picked up on and grilled you harder. I mean, you had blood coming down your face, and we almost chalked it up to ha-ha. It's like, no, there's some questioning that needs to go on here. And I remember when you were sitting down, I mean, you were almost asleep at the wheel at times.
Oh, I hurt so goddamn bad.
But I didn't know you were processing all of this. All of a sudden, you're processing, okay, this is how I feel. I got to fight a giant in Wes Sims. You know, you're processing this stuff. I really did think, you know, because we did the thing last week. It's like, hey, Joel, we get drunk on the show. And when you were just sitting there, you know, almost in a haze, I was serious about that. I was like, hey, what in the heck is going on with Joel? But I didn't even think much of it. I've seen you at your best, at your worst, all these different things. But in hindsight, you had blood rolling down your face. And I'll tell you this, starting back at something like this, a journey like, and starting with Jake Smith, I mean, I've told you that 100 times. He's the best boxer that isn't signed by a promotion. I mean, yeah, I wasn't there for the workout, but that can't be fun because he's not going to grab you and wrestle around and work your lungs like a lot of guys do. He's just going to hit you in the face and body until the bell goes off.
Yeah, and as bad as I was, he still carried me. He still didn't light me up. But anyway, to your point, I was a broken man on this chair. Well, this morning, now the body, that workout that we did, just every bit of my body hurt, you know, and I've been exercising, even though I gained all this weight back, I've still been in the gym. I'm still working out. I'm just not doing all the things that I should be doing. Well, goddamn, I told Kevin Sinier, you know, he's all fired up. He's like, all right, you know, you're going to come back and fight. I'm going to come out there. And he's a former wrestler and he knew what this meant. I said, I feel like I just went 9-2 at the junior nationals, and I actually know what that feels like. I went 9-2 at the junior nationals, and that's what my body felt like. And then I had the freestyles coming up next. This was 100 years ago when the junior nationals were in Cedar Falls. But anyway, I feel a hell of a lot better today because I'm a lot tougher today. You know why?
Tell me.
I hit mitts this morning, buddy. Oh boy, I'm like Muhammad Ali hitting those mitts. There's nobody better than me, man. Now that's a joke, but the reality is,
a lot of people believe it.
God, you just love hitting those mitts because they don't hit back. And
yeah, you do. You can get sucked into a real pitfall with that mitt hitting. We've seen people do it. I mean, even Ronda got given a hard time, but I think it was probably fair. I've seen boxers do it. MMA people do it. They go in and they hit those mitts, and the coach is pumping you up and telling you how good you are. And it's like, look at the bottom line is that's a good supplemental workout. It's really good for muscle memory, for getting a sweat going, for getting that heart rate up, but it does not have very much to do with what you got to do when a guy's standing in front of you.
Yeah, and this Wes Sims thing, man, this ain't about nothing except pride. You know, this ain't nothing about beating him. This ain't nothing about getting a win. This ain't nothing about any of this. This is about goddamn pride. He embarrassed me. It's on the UFC website. My kid loves that website. He knows I've never watched that fight. But I can guarantee you I will get my pride back. I will get my goddamn pride back.
Hey, there's nothing like waiting. You know, we talk about it on this show a lot. But one thing that fighters, and again, it's a pitfall, and I see them fall for it, and I just want to grab them and shake them and go, stop. You know, you have those good days and you have those bad days. And that's where it gets so impressive when you have a guy like Floyd Mayweather that world champion, fought everybody, and was able to hold that for 10 and 12 years. I mean, that's a ridiculous window to stay on top. But the point I'm trying to make is you're going to have those good days and you're going to have those bad days. And in a regular sport, you have those bad days, boy, you shake it off and it becomes a distant memory within a week, within a month. That was 3, 4, 5 games ago. You know, if you take it to like a high school kid or something that you'll see in college, in this sport where you get 2 and 3 cracks a year, it's tough. So, yeah, in your spot where you fought, how long ago was that when you fought Wes? I can only remember it by houses.
Probably 10 years, probably real close to 10 years.
I remember it by houses because you were in the big house on Kilkenny. Mm-hmm. So when was that, 2006-ish? I mean, is that a good guess?
I think 2006 was coming up on 10 years, or it's been 10 years. But, another part of it is I got to sit back and realize where I'm at. You know, okay, listen, man, I'm 36, 38 pounds away from being athletic. You know, so the first thing I got to do is get that weight off. I got to do a lot of things. And to take it a step further, I had to figure out who I am right now. Well, right now I'm Bill. Bill's the dummy, the practice dummy he just lies on the ground and you beat up on him. Okay, so right now I'm Bill. My next step is to be the heavy bag. You know, the heavy bag moves a little bit. Now, then the third step, once I get by being Bill and the heavy bag, well, then I can, be a beginner, and then I got to advance through it. But the other part of that is, the way my crazy mind works. If I say I'm going to do something, no matter how stupid or crazy or it doesn't have to make sense, God damn it, I'm going to do it.
Oh, I know you will. You're not going to have any more fun in the practice room, by the way, when Ryan comes back. And Ryan's going to take a week or take 2. Ryan's depressed right now. He lost to Ben Egli, and I just get it, and I'm trying to let him know through text message. It's just like, hey, Ryan, I've been in your shoes. I've lived there. Just take it from a guy with a little expertise. You're going to get over this someday. You're going to have to get over this someday. So just do it right now. I'll tell you a quick story. I went out to Hawaii on very short notice, and I fought Homer Moore. Remember Homer Moore?
Absolutely.
Talked about him on the show. We actually falsely convicted him.
You did?
Yeah, Homer got jammed up in some murder charge, and I said that he was away. He did not. He was acquitted of that. So there, we've corrected that statement from a few shows ago. But I went out to Hawaii. I fought Homer Moore, and I lost the fight, and that moved me to 9-2. I'd lost to Forrest Griffin.
I didn't know you lost to Homer Moore.
Yeah, I lost to Forrest Griffin, and I lose this fight to Homer Moore. And I felt like I beat Homer. I felt like I beat him pretty soundly, but he did have position. When it came to takedowns, he was getting them, and he wasn't doing anything with them, but he was getting positions, and I kind of followed that rule myself. So when the judges gave it to him, I just walked off. But I remember being in the back with Robert Follis and saying, I'm done. And it wasn't because I wanted to quit or what, but the UFC, the way it worked, man, your record was everything. They didn't look at who you fought. There was guys that were slipping through the cracks because they were 10-0, and it's like, yeah, but you fought 10 bums, and I didn't run my career like that. I fought anybody at any time, but there's no consideration given to that. It's just simply, did you win or did you not? And I was cognizant of this process, so I was in the back, and that was it. I was done because I just thought, it was so hard to get fights too. I got to remind you of the time frame back then. There was not very many shows. UFC's putting out 6 shows a year. There was no Bellator. Pride is in a totally different continent, and they're doing 5 shows a year. There just wasn't a lot of opportunity to even have those 12 fights that I had, or 11 fights, was an accomplishment. But coming off a loss to Homer Moore, who had just been released from the UFC, I'm not going to lose to Homer and then get picked up. Just wasn't going to work that way. Logically, I'm done. And the years it would take to rectify that, to get on a 5 or 6 win streak, that would take years and years of pandering and politicking and getting on every show and then getting the training and getting the wins. And I just remember thinking, I'm done. And I was telling Robert, this is the end of the road. And Robert's like, he was talking me off the plank, and I wasn't making a quick decision. I didn't feel like I was. I thought I was being very logical with what I just said to you right now. And BJ Penn was the promoter of the show. It was his brother, but, they're using BJ's name. And BJ, there was no commissions back then. It was whatever the event organizer said goes. And BJ's dad comes in the back, and he says, that was the wrong decision, and unlike every other show that does nothing about it and sends you home, we're going to fix it. In fact, we already have you win. So the judges rendered a decision. I believe it was a split decision. Really not relevant to the story. They raised Homer's hand. This was the main event. The show is now over. We're in the back. We're changing our clothes, getting ready to get paid and go back to Oregon. And we're in Hawaii. And BJ's dad comes in the back and says, no, it's already changed. The official win is you. So I'm thinking, well, you can't do that. I've never heard of such a thing. And Homer's not going to stand for that. Well, Homer did. Homer agreed with him. He's like, yeah, I was a little surprised they gave it to me anyway. And that was that. I had won, but the relevance to this whole story is the second. So I'm done. My career's over. I'm in the same spot doing the same thing with the same skill set. A guy walks in the room, says one line, which is, you win. We've overturned the decision. And now I'm back on board. So, the point is, it's like, wait a minute, I haven't gotten any better or any worse in the last 5 seconds, but you just changed my mindset completely. And I think that Ryan's going through a little bit of that. He's looking at it going, hey, I just lost on a small show to a guy. If I'm losing to a guy on a small show, how am I going to get in a big show? But what he doesn't realize, a lot of it because of his youth, what he doesn't realize is Ben Egli could be in the big shows right now, and so could he. That was a UFC caliber fight with UFC caliber opponents. That was a Bellator level fight with Bellator caliber opponents. The fact is, it just happened to be at King of the Cage in a smaller event. The quality's the same. The first guy I ever fought is Trevor Prangley. We fought at the Roseland in front of 80 people for nothing. Zero. It was an amateur fight. We rematched in the UFC, and Trevor belonged there. He went on, became the Bodog World Champion, won a whole bunch of fights in the UFC. I went on, had my career, but what we didn't realize at that time at the Roseland in front of 80 people getting nothing, we thought that's who we were. We thought we deserved to be at the Roseland in front of 80 people getting nothing. We didn't realize, no, man, the competition here is so thick. This fight could have happened anywhere. And that's just a little bit where Ryan's at. He's just not understanding, man, that was an amazing performance against an amazing opponent, and you won over 15 minutes of that contest for a title. Just because it was on a smaller show, you need to see what we're all seeing. What we're seeing there is a great athlete who did a great job with a great skill set that is headed places. He's also good looking, he's young, and he's got a bit of a gimmick. He's got everything a promoter's looking for. And I know he's listening to this right now, but he needs to hear this.
Well, to speak on this real quick is, you've told me how good he is. You've told me over and over and over again. Now, I've only had the opportunity to watch him in sparring, and you never know what sparring is. I can tell you, anybody on this planet that watched me spar the other night would know I suck. But as it goes to Ryan, I also know when somebody can fight. I was blown away how good he is. He did so many things that you can't do when you're sparring. You can't throw elbows. You can't throw hard hooks. He was great. He was phenomenal. And Ryan, you just need to suck it up and get your ass back to practice. Don't wait. Chael just laid a friggin' egg, and the first thing he did was go back to practice. So you need to be there too, young man.
Yeah, one doesn't speak to the other. A guy's skills, they don't always get shown. I remember I lost a match in high school, and I don't mean to keep telling my stories, but I'm trying to tell my stories to motivate Ryan. And he's such a stud, and it's so clear from the outside how good he is, right? How handsome he is, how many fans he brings. The fact that he's one of the few fighters that has a gimmick with the Walker Mania and the whole bit he does. It's so clear on the outside, but when you're him, it's hard to see. It's hard to see. We see fighters all the time, man. They fall into drugs, they fall into alcohol, all the way to the greats, the Sugar Ray Leonards, when things aren't going their way in the ring. And it's just really weird. It's like, no, you've done some really great things. You've got some laurels to go back on. But those few moments don't always work out. I got done wrestling Doug Lee for the state championship my senior year, and I lost the match. And Chuck Kearney went on to be my coach, University of Oregon, came in the back, and he presented a scholarship offer. And I'm sitting on my butt in the back of the Child Center. I'm done. It's my last match of my career in high school, and he gave me an offer. And I remember looking up from where I was sitting. He was bent down. He had his hands on his knees. I'm on the floor. And I just remember looking at him. I don't know if I said these words or if I just looked at him with, why would you offer him? I just got beat. And he said, Chael, I would never judge a guy's abilities on 6 minutes of wrestling. And, I mean, it changed me. You know, there's times when you're down, you need somebody to pick you up. You're not strong enough to pick yourself up. And I remember when he said it thinking, yeah, he's right. That was just 6 minutes. You know, I've wrestled since I was 9 years old every day, well over 1,000 matches. And, you know, he was a recruit. He knew what he was looking for. Doug Lee went on to win 3 Pac-10 championships, be in the NCAA semifinals in double overtime, All-American, big stud. And he goes, no, I'll take you both. And he did. He recruited Doug too. We went on to be teammates. But the point that I'm making is you never fully know what you're doing when you're the one in it. Jim Grunwald is a great example. Jim Grunwald never won a district championship, never won a state championship, never won a national championship, went on and was the United States Olympian. Well, what had happened is 15 miles away, just purely by chance, where his parents lived in relation to where Dennis Hall's parents lived, put him in the same districts, the same state, and the same nationals. Dennis Hall is one of the greatest to have ever done it, period. World champion, Olympic silver medalist. They happen to live next to each other, happen to choose the same sport, and happen to weigh the same thing. So Grunwald went his whole life thinking, I'm a backup, I'm a JV guy. You just never know. And in Ryan's spot, it's so clear from the outside, Egli's going to get picked up, so are you. And just because Egli beat you doesn't mean he's going to get picked up first. You might have the contacts that make the call for you first. You could end up in Bellator, in the Octagon, over at the UFC, before Egli does. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. When I lost to Tito, that hurt. There was no part of me that thought I was going to lose to Tito, and I knew where Tito stood. I knew full well this is the guy nobody loses to. If I lose to Tito, I'm going to have a real hard conversation with myself that I don't want to have. I used those exact words. I had dinner with my buddy Justin. He said, how are you feeling? I told him that. I said, man, I fully get the score here. And if you lose to Tito Ortiz, it's not great. But I knew how I felt going into that fight. I knew how I felt in the room. I knew how hard I was running. I knew what I could lift. I mean, some of those things are verifiable. You look at the numbers on the side of the plates. You look at the stopwatch after the runs. There are some things where you do know where you stand. And there were so many things that happened that night with being out for a few years and going in and just whatever happened, it all culminated. I got put in a bad position. I lost the fight. Fair and square. Fair fight. Completely fair. Joel, it was so bad. My performance was so bad. I had people out there thinking I threw the fight because they didn't have any other way to explain it. And you know, I'm sitting at it going, listen, this is a disaster. A main event, record-setting at the box office for the company, record-setting over on Spike TV. We're beginning of the year. I'll fully admit we're only to February here, but nobody's touched it. And there's been plenty of shows on free TV. Nobody's touched our number. And you lay an egg. So now you've got two choices, man. Do you sit around and feel sorry for yourself like I started to do? I've done the same thing that Ryan's doing, whether it was in Hawaii after Homer Moore or in the Child Center after a high school wrestling match. Or do you get back up and go, wait a minute, that's not a depiction of my skills. Am I being delusional? Am I being one of those guys clinging to career? Or did I really have better moments and I just wasn't able to show them then? And that's the spot that you get put in. And that's really what fighting is about. It's about moving forward when you're down. It's about being tough and picking yourself back up. It's about, when people are saying bad things about you, do you believe it? And the same goes the other way. When people are saying good things about you, do you believe that? It's great to read the things they say about you, Joel, good or bad. It's never okay to believe them. And I've seen people fall so far because they got hooked to headlines. They got hooked to nice things that people were saying or a stranger patting them on the back. It's like, man, none of this has to do with what your career is as an athlete. It has to do with how hard are you willing to work, what are you willing to sacrifice, and can you move forward when the chips are down? And that's what it's really about. And that's the spot that Ryan's finding himself right now. But I'm looking at Ryan from the outside. I'm going, dude, you're amazing. You're working body shots. You're pushing the pace. You're controlling the ring. You're dealing with the crowd. You're dealing with the lights. You're dealing with being on TV. You're dealing with a 5-round situation. There is not very many people walking this planet that are in the 5-round club. Not many guys walk into an atmosphere that is scheduled for 5 rounds, and even fewer actually make it. Usually in a 5-round fight, there is a finish, and it's not because one guy is better than the other. It's because one guy flicks it, and he doesn't want to be out there because it's too goddamn long. I don't agree with them going to 5 rounds. I don't know why the sport ever went to 5 rounds, but here we are. Ryan jumps into that situation. I mean, the courage of courage. He puts it all on the line. He just can't be down about himself. He just can't. I know that he is, but he just can't. And after I laid that egg against Tito to finish this thought, Royce Gracie comes in the locker room, and he says, let it go right now. Let this go. And Royce isn't my guy. Randy is. Randy came in the locker room before the fight, but I didn't see him afterwards. Royce comes in the locker room, and he says, let it go right now, and don't ever look back. Get back to your skills, get back into the gym, listen to your coaches, work with your teammates, and move forward. And that was it. He'd reinforced something that I already know, that I'm preaching right now to somebody else, but I'm preaching it because I'm in the right spot. I've been through it. And the only way through it sometimes, when the chips are really down, there's no way around it. You've got to go forward. You got to go through it. And that's the spot that he's in, and that's what I want him to do, and I hope that he's at practice tonight. And whether he works out or he just watches the practice, he needs to stay in the habit. Every night you get in the car, you get your gear, you show up. That's the spot he's in.
Yeah, let me just speak on this real quick, and then we can move on. And again, I'm nobody. I'm not trying to put a lipstick on the pig. It's still a pig. You looked at least 50% better the first sparring session after the Tito fight. You cannot, with 3.5 years, you had to get in there. You have to go through those things, and you also have to figure out who the hell you are. You're a goddamn gorilla. You're a badass. You put people on their back and you beat the shit out of them. You maul people. Maul is the word. And the first thing I saw Wednesday night, the week after the fight, was you mauling people again. And then we seen it again over at Fabiano's. And I actually, text Randy on that, and he's, let's keep that guy. Let's keep that guy. I'll bet all my chips on that guy.
Yeah, and you never know how it's going to work out. But boy, you got to try. You just have to try. And I've learned some of the best lessons from being a fan, from watching people, whether I looked up to them or whatever the situation was. And a lot of it was what not to do. A lot of it was I'm going to gain strength by watching you, and this is something I can't do. You can't take those breaks, and you can't go feel sorry for yourself, and you can't go, again, we saw it with some people we looked up to. I brought up Sugar Ray a little bit ago, and it's public. I'm not speaking out of school, but, he fell into cocaine use and all these other things, and I'm sitting back and go, man, you're Sugar Ray Leonard. You're amazing. If you never win another fight, you left us with so many great moments. I just don't know how you're down on yourself because you didn't get a result that you wanted. That's not what being a fighter, being tough is all about, man. There's other things to it. Some of it you're not blessed with. Some guys, one guy's born faster than the other guy. That's not a skill you can work on. One guy's born stronger. He's got the right DNA. There's some variables there that you get in the gym and you work on to try to close those gaps and work on your own skill set. But at the end of the day, did you work hard? Did you walk out? Did you show courage? Did you sacrifice? Did you do everything you say you would on the time you said you'd do it? Did you make the weight that you promised to? Did you follow the rules that you agreed to? Those are the things that a guy needs to take with him. And, we're talking about Ryan right now, but he's just so damn good. And one of those things, you and I were talking about Ricky the other day. That was I've been telling you how good Ricky Simone is from the moment I met him until now. And that was your first time getting to see him live. And of all those great fights, of all, Ronnie Marks wins the championships, finishes Lopez in the first. Of all these things, your takeaway was Ricky. Ricky is as good of a fighter as I have ever seen. I don't just mean in person. I mean, the guys I've seen on TV, he can do everything. He can do everything Conor can do, except he can also wrestle. And he's tough, and he's in shape, and he's strong. He's the whole thing. And a lot of it comes down to opportunity. Why is Conor a bigger? I'm sitting here telling you I know a guy that's as good as, better than Conor McGregor. I'm sitting here telling you that. You know what a claim that is? And no one's ever heard of him. Well, they will
They will.
eventually, but it all comes down to opportunity. Some guys get opportunity. I had somebody call me a few weeks ago, and they said, listen, I'm doing everything right. Here's what I'm doing. And they start telling me, and they're entering events, local events, or getting themselves out to tournaments. Some of it had to do with grappling, but anything they can do to compete and get their name out there. And they're saying, when is my phone going to ring? When am I going to get the call? And I said, let me reprogram the way you're thinking. Go out there and do all of these great things, but then make the call. Your phone's never going to ring. And where that came from or when the call is going to come, that's a fictional tale, and I don't know who started it. But let me stop it for you now. Go do these great things. Call someone like me, which you just did. Let me give you an email address. Let me give you a phone number of the guy that you think's going to make the call to you and change your life. That call's not going to happen, but you can call him. And he did. I gave him two numbers, Richard Chu and Sean Shelby. He reached out to both of them, and they both responded. He's now on the radar. They didn't sign him, but he's now on the radar. And that's where Ricky needs to start as well. You know, Ricky is one of these guys, much like Ryan, not like Jake. Jake's out there. Jake understands the game, and he's putting his own name out there. But these guys are sitting back and waiting for something good to happen. They're doing everything right, but they're waiting. And it's like, guys, the world is going to the bold. You need to get out there, and you need to ask for something. This is still America, and you're not going to get anything in this country that you don't ask for. Get the phone number. Get the email. Don't leave it to your managers. Don't leave it to chance. Don't leave it to your girlfriend. You make the call. Start bugging them, and don't be afraid to hear no. Start bugging these guys.
I agree 100% with you. Ricky's so goddamn good because he's got everything. I mean, to fight the way he fights, that composed. I mean, he looks like he's getting ready to take a nap. He's getting ready to take a nap. The one thing about Ryan, cut your goddamn hair. You know, you keep flicking your hair out of your eyes. I used to hate Benson Henderson with his hair falling down because I know as a fan, I can see through what's a punch and what's not a punch, but goddamn, those judges always can't. So cut your goddamn hair and get to practice. I gave you 8192. That means man the fuck up.
All right. I thought we were going about this a little bit nicer. I thought we were going to coddle him, but
we just blew him in front of 500,000 people for 35 minutes. He's had 3 days. Get your ass back to practice.
Yeah, man. Let's give him 1 week, Ryan. You got 1 week. Feel bad for yourself. Do whatever you got to do, and then we're not going to wait for him to come to practice. We're going to go to his house and pick him up.
All right, fair enough.
It's as simple as that. Joel, let me jump in right here. I want to tell you about HelloFresh. The folks over at HelloFresh want to change the way that people eat forever. They believe everyone deserves honest, natural, delicious, healthy food. They celebrate fresh ingredients and making magic in the kitchen. At HelloFresh, they believe everyone has a chef from within. HelloFresh is a meal delivery service that makes cooking easy, fun, and convenient. Each week, HelloFresh will create new, delicious recipes with step-by-step instructions designed to take about 30 minutes for everyone from novices to seasoned cooks on short time. HelloFresh sources the freshest ingredients measured to the exact quantities, so there's never any waste. You can enjoy a registered dietitian who is on staff who reviews every single recipe to ensure it's nutritionally balanced. All the food will be delivered right to your doorstep in a box that's sealed, insulated. It's totally free. I love it. My wife, Brittany, does all the cooking in our house. We had a chicken. We had fresh potatoes last night. We had a smoothie afterwards, a fruit smoothie. They send it all to you. All you have to do is put it together. You can know that you're eating natural, healthy food. They've got all sorts of diets. They've even got gluten-free diets. They've got paleo diets. Go over to HelloFresh.com. Check it out. If you like it, if you want to sign up, they're going to bring the food right to you. And for my listeners only, they're going to get $35 off their first week of deliveries. Just visit HelloFresh.com, enter Chael35 when you subscribe. This is some of the greatest tasting food. It comes right to your house, and you get to prepare it. So it's fun. In addition, makes the house smell good. It's having a home-cooked meal. You just know that it's been checked by a full-time registered dietitian. You know it's delicious and it's healthy, and they've got all sorts of selections. To save $35 at HelloFresh.com, all you have to do is enter Chael35 $35. Get over to HelloFresh.com. Check out the selection. See what you want to do. I recommend you got to try the chicken and potatoes. Other than that, get anything that you want. You're going to love it all.
Let's go. Let's go with that. The Godfather needs some help. So this popped up on Brew Chance's radar, and it's actually been on my radar for a while. One of the takeaways, and I've spoke on this, of going out to the Bellator event. I've never been to a Bellator event. I've been to 23, 25 UFC events. I don't. Lad knows the number. And going into it, I had noticed. I was out in Malibu. I had noticed. The weigh-in wasn't a big spectacle and where it was held at. And then it went to me. I was like, hey, they're producing a show. Bellator's producing a show. It wasn't until I got to the forum, outside the forum, looked at the historic forum, and I was thinking, maybe there's 5,000 people, maybe 6,000. Well, you couldn't park for, we had to walk. We took a cab and we had to walk a mile to get there. So I know it's going to be a good crowd. Then we got there, and even though we had some great seats from you, we had to get a couple more for Scott Davenport and Andy. And you couldn't get a cheap seat. You had to, they killed it. And I was like, oh my God, great job. But Bellator, we don't talk about it. We don't really talk about it. Even though you fight for Bellator and we're UFC based, Bellator's real, and Bellator ain't going anywhere. Frankie Edgar says he has one fight remaining on his contract, and so far negotiations with the UFC have failed. Would the UFC be prepared to let Frankie go? Well, the answer is yes. And the reason that answer is yes is because there's guys like Ryan and Ricky Simone all over the place that they can build into new stars. And the marketplace is now big enough for which is UFC. And what's cool about Bellator is they're not trying to get in that soup, but they're a damn good product. And to speak on that a little bit is, the UFC used to buy up everybody that was in their way. They just buy them up. If they were in their way, they just buy them up. I think the new partners have come in there and said, hey, there's going to be a place that Ryan Bader needs to go to. There's going to be a place that Benson Henderson needs to go to. Even Frankie. You're talking about a legend. They let Chuck go. And Chuck's doing stuff over the World Series of Fighting. So this isn't a bad thing. This is a good thing.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. Going over to Bellator is a different feel. And the thing about it is, they don't have to take over the whole world. They don't have to have the biggest superstar in every division. There's always a conversation. What would happen if, Michael Chandler, the Bellator champion, was to go over to the UFC, fight the UFC's champion? What would happen if he jumped in the mix with Conor McGregor? And those are okay debates to have. You only have to have, Joel, one or two divisions. If you've got the crowning heavyweight, if you've got the crowning light heavyweight, whatever the situation might be, that will drive you forward. You can always move forward and then build. Let the conversation be out there. They don't have unified titles in MMA yet like they were able to do in boxing. We'll see what happens. You and I have discussed the Ali Act. Let's see what happens there. But the UFC will compete. If somebody wants to compete, they will compete, or they'll buy them up. They bought up companies just to shut them down before. That's business at the highest level. But the one thing is, you'll never meet a guy that doesn't like Scott Coker. It's never happened. Dana White falls into that same category. Dana White is not a guy that does not like Scott Coker. He's trying to move his own brand forward, but he hasn't taken any of the same actions against Coker and Bellator, to go out and compete and control market share. They've got their space. And everybody seems to be operating on the same page. What brings me to that is your original point where you bring up Frankie Edgar. Would the UFC let Frankie Edgar go? Yeah, they would. And it's not a knock on Frankie. It's just a reality of, hey, look, this is what we're doing over here. This is how we're doing it. We're very good at balancing the books, as you've seen by our sale. And if something gets outside the lines, yes, we'll let them go and we'll start over. And, Coker's the same way. So many people, Joel, will miscategorize and act as though you go from the UFC and you go down to Bellator. Well, it's not true. If you just go look at the fighters, they're trading fighters left and right. Friend of the show, Will Brooks, who we had in studio. Will was over in Bellator, and he said, I want to go to the UFC. He was still under contract with Bellator. They could have stopped him. They could have taken him to court. They could have just said no. Coker goes, yeah, that's where you want to be? Yeah, why don't you just go over there? Unwind the tape, go to Hector Lombard. I think his contract did expire. The details in that really don't matter, though. He was a big star in Bellator. He wanted to go. Benson Henderson was a big star in the UFC, as was Rory McDonald. They wanted to go to Bellator. And the UFC goes, well, if that's where you want to go, then that's where you should be. I can remember getting recruited out of college, and I had a conversation with Troy Steiner on the phone. And he was at Oregon State, and I wanted to go to the University of Oregon. And Troy was really calm. He didn't make it about money or scholarships or try to outdo them or talk you into anything. He said, if that's where you think you should be, that's where you should be. That's how quick our call was. That's how simple it was. But he's right. You know, I was 18 years old, and I still remember those words because, there's a big message in that. If a guy wants to be somewhere, don't hold him. But it does go both ways. And it is not that, guys end up in Bellator when things don't work out at the UFC. It goes both ways. Guys are in Bellator, they want to go to the UFC, they go. The UFC, yeah. Could Frankie end up at Bellator? Absolutely it could.
I actually missed
I'll watch Frankie fight wherever he fights. He's one of those guys. And I've been very open to let you know he's my favorite fighter. But there's a number of guys I am going to watch wherever they are. And the UFC has done a great job of making people household names and creating a promotion behind a guy. But Bellator, man, they've got their own powerhouse over there too with Spike and Viacom. And if they can trade guys back and forth, let a guy go here, then a guy decides, you know what, I do want to be in Bellator. Or if you're in my spot where you go, hey, listen, there's a guy I want to fight, specifically in Vanderlei Silva. UFC, you just don't have him. I'm chasing Vanderlei right now. I'm not chasing anything else. I can make some of those decisions. And now you've got an opportunity to go both places. I don't think that it always needs to come down to money. I don't like that when guys make that public, or when they talk about their negotiations or this guy's paying me more. I do like what Troy Steiner said to me all those years ago, where he just said, if that's where you want to be, then that's where you should be. And I really think guys should put their life more a little bit around that. There's nothing worse in life, and this is just capitalism and the way it works, but there's nothing worse than having somebody tell you what you're worth. It's insulting. And the number's never high enough, and your feelings are always hurt on it. So here, let's set that aside. Let's set negotiations. Where is it you want to be? What weight class do you want to fight in? Where do you want to do the fighting? What guys do you want to fight? We can figure out the channel and all of that stuff after the fact, but let's establish that. Where is it you want to be? And let's ask Frankie that. Hey, Frankie, where do you want to be? If you want to be in the UFC, then just be in the UFC. No hard feelings. If you want to be in Bellator, come fight in Bellator. If this is a cash grab and you're going to make it public like other guys, for me as a fan, that's off-putting. For me as a fan, man, I'm paying my hard-earned money. $50 a buy on pay-per-view, calling my cable subscriber, making sure I have Spike every month and getting the bill and pay. For me, that's a little bit off-putting. I'm a fan and I'm going to support you, but if I find out that you're not doing this because you've got a goal, you've got a motivation, you've got a guy you want to fight, you got a title that you want to pursue, you have a love for the industry, as a fan that's paying my money that I earned, it's a little bit off-putting. I wish guys would keep that to themselves a little bit more and go back to what Troy Steiner said to me all those years ago. It's just simply, if that's where you want to be, then that's where you should be.
That's a great point. To expand on this, and I didn't even know, Ryan Bader actually signed with Bellator.
Is that true? Is
Yes.
that confirmed? Because I can't confirm that anywhere. I'm just hearing that that's about to happen.
Okay, well, Dana said that that's the best place for him in his career right now. So to just expand on that, this is a good thing for the sport. This is a good thing for the sport. Want to transition over to Conor on this, where it's Conor madness. Everybody's got Conor's name in his mouth. Anderson Silva came out with, and I didn't know this. I've been licking my wounds for a couple days. He's actually the underdog in the Brunson fight. And Anderson's come out and said, hey, before I retire, I want to fight Conor. And Conor's said, fool them all. I'll fight anybody as long as the numbers are right, get the numbers right. Man, Conor, listen, they already took both your belts away, whether you believe it or not. Okay. You're woofing about Floyd Mayweather. Hey daddy, that fight's not going to happen. So the longer you're out there, brother, the less people are gonna. If you think you're irreplaceable, you're not, man. You're not.
Yeah. So you finished that in a different way than I thought you would. I thought you were going to stay on Conor and Anderson. Now I'll go a step further for you. Did you know Anderson? He wants to do it at 170. He's willing to go down to 170, and he did a weight cut and got down to like 176 or something, or 174. Now I don't believe him that he actually did that. There would be no sense to pass up the weight that he's got to make against Brunson. That wouldn't make any kind of sense, but this is the claim that he's making. And I'll tell you this, if Anderson wants that fight and is willing to get to 170, he's going to get that fight. I'll also remind you of one other thing. Anderson's last fight, Anderson used to fight at 170. People don't know that. Anderson's last fight before he got into the UFC was at 175. He was in a tournament with Okami and Shields. I think Carlos Condit might have been in that. I have to look up the tournament. But the bottom line was that was his competition prior to the UFC, and the weight that he made was 175. When he came to the UFC, he got signed for 180. They didn't need a 170-pound star. They had Matt Hughes at the time. Koscheck was an up-and-comer. Fitch was starting to make his splash. So they signed him at 185, but people do forget that. Anderson could get to 170, is willing to get to 170, and so many people, when Anderson had made that comment, overlooked it, thought he was kidding, thought he wasn't being serious. I'm on the other side of it. I think he's very serious. I think he would get to 170, and Conor would certainly take that fight. And that would do big numbers regardless of the outcome of the Brunson fight. And if Anderson's at the end of his lease, he may be. He may be towards the end of his road. I mean, let's see what happens here. But I'll make this point to you. That's still a marketable and drawable fight, even if a guy's on his way out. Because it's like, okay, great, then we're going to hand the torch to Conor fully. And there's something to sell there. And Conor never commented on it. I think Conor also was of the school of, oh, well, that isn't going to happen, and everybody's trying to use my name. I think Anderson was being quite serious when he said it. Claimed that he had made a weight cut, which I don't believe, but you get the point. And whether he did or not, that is his real weight. He's about a 180-pounder. That weight class just doesn't exist, so he had to choose where he went, and he ended up all the way at 205. He had a little help, as USADA eventually showed us, but he could go 170. He's very, very lean.
You know, there was a time, you know, Randy and Dana, they've been at war, the pissing match the last several years. But there was a time where Dana said, listen, I've never said no to that guy. I've never said no to Randy. Want to fight for the title, want to do this, want to do that, and Randy deserved that. I believe that if Anderson tells Dana that he wants to do something, I think Dana offers him that same kind of respect as well. I'd love to see it. I do, you know, I do mention to Conor, hey man, you're the biggest thing since sliced bread, but somebody's making new bread every day. So, you know, don't keep the star from to continue to rise because you've lost your goddamn mind. You're not fighting Floyd Mayweather. Let's come back to the cage and make some money.
Now, are you out of bounds on that? I mean, I feel like maybe you're marking out a little bit. Here's what I'm hearing about Conor, and Conor plays everything right in the media. I see so many people that try to critique him, and you're right. He could easily stub his toe. However, I will offer you this. What I hear behind the scenes is that he's very easy to deal with. If you want to get a deal done and you want to get a fight or a contract, that he's very easy to deal with. That he comes out and says, I demanded this and I got it. And I got $10 million or $20 million or whatever some of his claims are. But the behind the scenes, he's not. What I do hear is that he's a man of his word. Now, everybody changes eventually. Everybody pushes back and has their hard moments. And I don't propose that he isn't a guy that understands his worth and goes out there and tries to get it a little bit. But as long as Joel, here's something that you need to consider, so does everybody else. As long as Conor is easy to deal with in the office, he can go out and do whatever craziness he wants to do in the media. And I feel like you're saying, like, hey, Conor's not going to fight. Conor was pretty straight up. I thought after the Eddie fight, he said, look, my girlfriend's pregnant. I'm taking my oars out of the water a little bit until the baby comes. And for whatever reason that he needed to be there while she's pregnant, but he did tell everybody. He did disclose it. They did the interim championship, or getting ready to. I mean, everybody kind of knew the score. He's not a guy that's gone back on his word. Some people didn't like his words. Some people didn't want him to take a break because he is the star and face of the company and champion 2 different divisions. Some people didn't like that. But as long as he's a man of his word and he does disclose ahead of time what his intentions are, I don't see any problem there. Now, if he starts to push back and huff and puff, it is a part of his youth. You know, some guys weren't around when Andrei Arlovski was created, and it's the finest example, and it's really the only one you need to know about the business. The business at that time ran off of two people. Now, I'm going back to 2005, but it ran off of two people, Randy Couture and Tito Ortiz. Now, Chuck Liddell was around, but for whatever reason, Chuck was not a star. Chuck's star was one of the slowest to rise ever. Once it finally did, he's one of the biggest stars ever. But it was a very, very slow rise, and nobody could figure out why Chuck wouldn't get over. I can remember the time when him having a mohawk was weird. It was really weird. I also remember the time when kids started putting their hair in mohawk on Halloween and going as Chuck Liddell. Eventually, it became a cool thing. Conor went through that same thing more recently. I remember a time when he would show up on set when I was out at UFC Tonight in a tuxedo all the way down to the bow tie, and it was weird. Now it's a really cool and fashionable look that designers are getting behind and wanted to be the one to make his next suit for him. So the point that I'm trying to make, though, when Randy Couture retired and Tito Ortiz got in his piston match and stepped aside, they were left with nobody. They had absolutely no stars, and they created one overnight called Andrei Arlovski. And Andrei Arlovski became recognized and believed all the way down to reporters that are supposed to know what they're doing. He was believed to be the scariest guy on the planet. Now, if you looked a little bit closer, he had a record of 8 wins and 4 losses and had been TKO'd 2 fights before on an undercard. They had nobody else. They took one look at this guy and they go, this is the guy with the youth and the look that is made for a billboard. And they created him overnight, and his skills were not great. But he had the look and he had the marketing machine behind him. And the next thing you knew, not only was he ranked number 1, but he was also selling out arenas. The point that I'm trying to make, and Conor might be too young to know this, and he might find out the hard way, because Conor's, 27 now, and this is 13 years ago, so he's 14 years old. So Conor may not know this story. They created something out of nothing overnight. Literally, Joel, it took them just over a week to do it. They put him on everything. They put his face out there. They pushed him to the top of the bill. They got the media behind it. They had his press conferences. They put him in a suit. They branded him the pit bull. They gave him a mouthpiece with fangs on him. They did the whole bit. Got him that strap. Picked his opponents. I was there. I debuted the night when he headlined and fought Paul Buntello for the World Championship. Now, that isn't meant to insult Paul, but the reality is there is no time in fighting where Paul Buntello was a true number 1 contender, but there are ways to do it. It's happened before. Tito was soon forgotten. Tito, who was the biggest star at the time, could not get an appearance at the local county fair, and the same thing can happen with Conor. And you'll think that it can't, but it can, and it can happen overnight. If he wants to puff, and he puffs a little bit too hard. Now, again, this comes to the office, not to the way he portrays the meetings in the media. But if in the office he becomes too hard to deal with and they can't get something done, it's going to be game over, and it's going to be game over in record time. And that's what he doesn't understand. He thinks he's going to come on shows like this or go on SportsCenter and tell his side. He will not. When we all get the email that says that he's out and this is who's in, that's who we are then going to talk to.
You make a fair point, and I don't try to be anybody I'm not up here. I'm a maniac. I get that. But I've had a very unique perspective of this sport. I watched it grow from the back of my car dealership. I watched superstars like you and Randy and Danny and Ed Herman and Nate Quarry and Chris Lieben, and it goes on and on and on. Come out of there, and I've watched this sport. A lot of people that are in this sport, I go to your practices, and I see the conversations that these up and comers are having, and I'm like, wow, that whole conversation wasn't even possible to happen before. And my point is there's people that help pave the way for everybody. And even though it's only been, 16 years, man, without a lot of those key ingredients, no matter how good the promotion machine is, it wouldn't have went anywhere. I mean, you can't forget about Matt Hughes and Randy Couture and Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz. You just can't. Those are the 4 horsemen out of the gate. Now, another guy, to me, is Anderson Silva. If somebody says, who the fuck is Anderson Silva? As a fan, now maybe I'm marking out, that irritates me. As a fan, that irritates me. And again, I'm marking out, but that did kind of ruffle my feathers because I'm like, I see it now. Everybody thinks this sport is has always been this way, and goddamn, it hasn't. You know, you look at, we started the show with Ryan, and I'll circle back to that. Everybody had a full-time job 16 years ago. Everybody had a full-time job. One of the great things to get to was when you made enough money fighting that you could quit your job. And now people with no fights ever are they don't even have a job. You know, Ryan Walker's got a full-time job. You know, that makes me feel good. Yeah, kid, but again, I've had a unique perspective on this sport, and I understand the history of it, and I don't think everybody does.
Yeah, and that is a little bit tough when you take guys like you and I that were there as the table was being set before everybody was sitting down at it, is what you just said. The sacrifices were much more, and it really was about who wants to do this, not who can be bribed into it. And you will hear guys come out, and I support it from a marketing standpoint. I support the guys that come out and say, you know, this business only exists because of me, and I did it, and I did all of that. Where the problem is the guys that believe it. Where Conor thinks that he has changed the game or done anything like that. And sometimes, hey, are we marks and we're falling for what he's saying? Or does he actually believe this? Did he change the sport? No. Did he create the sport? No. Was the sport long before him? Very successful, and will be here and very successful after him. Yeah, of course. I mean, don't forget, Conor's not in Bellator. Bellator's thriving. Go check the stock prices over at Viacom. When they started, when Coker signed on, and Viacom's a whole company, but I'm just using this as an example. They were worth $5.1 billion. Do you know what Viacom's worth today, Joel? After Coker came on, I get that this isn't, the Bellator's just one part. I'm not trying to give my boss all of the credit, but this is an example because it's the dates that I checked. They were worth $5.1 billion when Coker signed on. Do you know what their stock price is today?
I do not.
They're sitting on $15.3 billion.
Ooh.
So I guess the point that I'm making, Conor's incredible for business. Conor's done an incredible job. We don't have Conor. We're kicking ass. So if you think for a second that the UFC without Conor isn't still going to kick it, that's just silly. We're an example over at Bellator that you don't have to have Conor to be selling out arenas and moving the needle. There's great things that go on out there. And to your initial point, when you're a guy like Conor that came in late and the table is already set and there's all sorts of money in MMA and there's sponsors and there's videos, games, and there's magazines and there's arenas and there's a show every week. There's podcasts. Sometimes you do miss the point. And if he marks out for his own gimmick, and we've seen guys do this in every industry, if he marks out for his own gimmick and he starts behaving the way that he's saying he's behaving, and that will happen over time. If he says something enough times, he's just going to become that person. He's going to find out the same way as Andrei Arlovski did, because when they created Andrei Arlovski, Andrei eventually started to believe it too. And they started paying him more and more and trying to keep him around and going, okay, this is a team effort here. But eventually Andrei puffed too hard, and all of a sudden he wasn't fighting Paul Bunatellos anymore. All of a sudden he's locked in that cage with guys like Tim Sylvia. And it's like, hey man, as good as you think you are, not only is there a guy that can beat you, we know who the guy is. And we will put his name opposite of you once you force us to, and we will show you time and time again who's in control here and who really set this table.
Now, great point. I want to go completely off topic because it drives me crazy, and I actually remember where it came from. You know, the corners used to hold the clock and tell you how much time you had, or they were your boys. They were your boys. You were going to a fist fight on Friday night, and then it became something else. Well, Matt Hughes is the one that started that love fest with the cornermen and hugging and making man love to the corner before he went in the ring. And God damn, do I hate that. You know, now everybody's got to hug their corner and kiss their corner and pay respect to their corner. Get in the goddamn cage and get down. You know, don't make love to a guy that's trying to kill you or your corner. They love you. They're in your corner, man. So I wanted to throw. He's the one where that started at. The one-man army, and he'd hug his buddies and everything, and he'd get in there. And it was kind of cool when he did it. He was the champ. It was new. It was kind of cool. But goddamn, when you bite somebody's move, and then everybody bites the move, and then the corner, now they forgot when guys used to get in the cage too. They need to get their hug on. Man, get in and get down.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I can't disagree with that at all. I mean, I hate it more when the fight's going on. if you're out there hugging a guy and you're slapping his hand and telling him good job as he's trying to kick your ass, I mean, it just reminds me of two kids on the playground. If I know they don't want to fight each other, I don't want to see them fight. If you're out there hugging a guy and congratulate him on his efforts, you're telling me you don't want to fight him. Well, if you don't want to fight him, I don't want to see you fight him. What's weirder than that?
Hey, can I plug 8192 for a second? So I come up with this 8192, and everybody's kind of jumped on board. Hey, when are the shirts coming out, or this, that, and other? And the whole time I've been like, how in the hell can I market that, and what does that mean? And then during Super Bowl Sunday, it kind of came to me what the hell it means. It means man up and kick ass. It means don't be a bully and don't tolerate bullies. It means put your kid down and put your phone down and pick your kid up. Buy your old lady some goddamn flowers.
All right, you plugged 81 to 92. You looking to sell something there?
Pretty soon. That's a hell of a line. I got nowhere to go to that, but that's coming. That's coming to you.
It's funny. I say this is funny too. Not Matt Lindland's story, but not to tease Matt in the least. But Matt had started Dirty Boxer. Do you remember Dirty Boxer? Mm-hmm. And Dirty Boxer was funny to me from the very jump because first off, I'm like, well, that's gross. Why are your boxers dirty? And secondly, if you're talking about dirty boxing, that's a phrase that was coined by Jens Pulver about Randy Couture. So when Matt became the Dirty Boxer, I thought, well, that's pretty interesting because Jens specifically gave that to Randy Couture. You heard Joe Rogan and Mike Goldberg run with it. That's a term that's around to this day, but it was coined by Jens and it was about Randy. So Matt started a company called Dirty Boxer. Great, fine. They were doing apparel and they had the underwear and some shirts and some hats. And Matt was doing Sport Fight at that time. And he would get all of his guys to go out there with the Dirty Boxer on. And they didn't have other sponsors and they were Matt's guys, so they all did it. But it was for 4 years that he was pushing this Dirty Boxer brand before there was anywhere you could go buy it. He had no website. It was like, Matt, if you want us to push the brand, we're in. We're all your guys. We want to see you succeed in anything you do, but you got to have a place to sell the stuff eventually. And it was like 4 years of pushing Dirty Boxer, but never a place that anybody could see it and go, hey, I'd like a pair of those and go buy it.
There you go. It's coming soon. And so now I can say if I just got 8192 on, somebody says, what's 8192? I can say man up and kick ass.
Yeah, don't be a bully and don't take bullies. All right, guys. Hey, if you're looking for a car, I don't care if it's new or used. Don't buy anything without checking it out on TrueCar. Go get yourself the TrueCar app right now, totally free, no fine print. Free today, free forever. But when you're looking for a car, go build the car that you want virtually. Put in the make, model, the years, the color, everything you want to do the car. Type in your zip code. It will show you what people in your area paid for that exact same car. You take that down to any TrueCar certified dealership. There's over 11,000 of them in this country. You will work directly with a TrueCar certified dealer, and they will honor the price. It's going to save you time. Go and get TrueCar right now. Right now, before you do anything else. Just leave it on your phone. Eventually, you're going to be looking for a car purchase. Everybody listening to this show has a car. The question is, did you pay too much for it? Go get the TrueCar app today. Joel, you look like you have a final thought. What is it you want to say?
Hey, Jake Ellenberger, you listen to this show. You've got a fight. I know you have a fight. If you don't text me and tell me who that fight is, I'm going to make it up.
Hey, Jake was giving... That's funny, actually. I like that. Yeah, let's go make up. Well, didn't someone call Jake out?
Cote. We were going to make the Cote fight, and Jake said, hey, cool the brakes. I got something. And so... Now Jakey Baby went silent. And I said, listen, man, I'll keep your secret. Who you got? And he didn't tell me. So, Jake, you got 24 hours, brother. If you don't tell me who you got, I'm going to make up a name.
All right. And Jake had texted you as we were headed out to watch Ryan and Ricky fight with a Super Bowl tip. Did his tip come through?
Damn close. Damn close. He had the song was, he had some of them. He almost had them all until the Patriots came back and won. But the song... The big one that he had was the first song that Lady Gaga, and by the way, Lady Gaga killed it.
She's talented.
God, she killed it. She jumped off the goddamn building. He said The Edge of Darkness or whatever was going to be the first song, and it was, but she snuck in a national anthem bit first.
So he didn't win that bet. He didn't give you a tip on Falcons versus Patriots. He gave you a prop bet. What do they call it? Prop bet. DSI was taking prop bets on everything. They were taking odds on if you wanted to what song Lady Gaga was going to sing, and then I think they even took something on would the national anthem be over 90 seconds or under 90 seconds or something like. So Jake gave you a tip on Lady Gaga's first song?
He had that. He had the Falcons at plus 27.5 total, so he won that. I don't know how many he had, but I do know why me and Jakey are boys. He's got everything I'm looking for in a guy. He's a badass. He's got a hot old lady, and he likes to gamble.
Hey, there it is. Boom. Let's go out on that. All right, everybody. Until next time, I'm Chael Sonnen, and you are welcome.
Thanks for listening to You're Welcome with Chael Sonnen. Download new episodes every week at podcastone.com. That's podcastone.com.
A few weeks ago, over 400,000 people listened to my interview with Adam Carolla. I'm Steve Bertoni, host of the Forbes interview. Thank you for your incredible support. This week, check out my chat with hip-hop giant Jason Derulo.
What was your first kind of real payday?
It was my first publishing check. It wasn't crazy, man. It was maybe like 90,000 or something like that.
That's crazy to me.
Subscribe to the Forbes interview on iTunes now, and be sure to give it a rating and review.
Stay tuned for the latest AP News headlines from Podcast One, right after this.
AP Update, I'm Ed Donahue. Jeff Sessions was sworn in today at the White House as the next Attorney General.
He's a man of integrity, a man of principle, and a man of total, utter resolve. You just got a little witnessing of that.
President Trump says Sessions is the right man to lead a crackdown on violent crime and terrorism. Sessions says a spike in violence is not a blip.
We will deploy the talents and abilities of the Department of Justice in the most effective way possible to confront this rise in crime and to protect the people of our country.
Sessions was sworn in after the Senate confirmed his nomination following a contentious confirmation process. Sessions was the first sitting U.S. Senator to endorse Donald Trump for president. He faced criticism from Democrats over his record on civil rights and immigration. Republicans praised Sessions for his 4 decades of public service and his commitment to fairness and the rule of law. AP Update, I'm Ed Donahue.